2020 is an expansion to the grand game of human existence I think everyone would like to agree we have gotten our fill of and would love to return and never want to talk about again or even think about it. And I don't blame anybody for this. But I personally think I'd like to save some of my stuff from my playthrough. I got a couple of save points I'd like to keep. But nothing sticks out to me nearly as much as my consistent night that I've had for about roughly 6 months now. This time on That Game Review Show, I'm your host, Terrell, and I want to take you on a brief trip where you will find almost no in-between of being bored or having those stories to tell your friends. Allow me to introduce you to 7-Eleven Job Simulator, Nightshift Edition. But first, a little disclaimer just for you. The following experience was one that I personally had and saw for about 6 months at the 7-Eleven store that I worked at. These encounters are not being presented on how it will work at every location. I just want to make that clear, because depending on the location is really what matters when it comes to this. Now that we're clear on that fact, let's press on. Now, the basics behind this job aren't that hard at all. If anything, it's exactly what you would expect. It's a heavy amount of cleaning and stocking, and of course you prep for the next morning, you do intakes and deliveries, an occasional reset, and dealing with customers. It's nothing too crazy or extraordinary. But for that sweet, sweet YouTube runtime, let me walk you through what my normal routine would be. After I clock on at 10 p.m. perfectly, I would take a gander around the store, see what areas were going to need my attention the most that night. That was key. That way I wouldn't be spending trying to figure out what needed to be done as I was doing it, because that was a very long checklist. Don't want to deal with that. But after that mental tally, I would always head for the roller grill. That needed to be cleaned regardless every night because, man, sometimes it was fine and would take 20 minutes and would be a cakewalk, or it could be an hour-and-a-half long chore. So it's better to just get that out of the way. And while that would be going, I would have the turbo oven, those things that Starbucks have. I'd have that thing cooling down behind me. That way I could just clean that immediately after. Of course, depending on the customers and, the time in which they would come in and all of that stuff, there would normally be enough time that I could take down all of the items that needed to be pulled every night. Things like the donuts, maybe the fruit, things like that. The perishables that can last either only a day or 2 days. So I would take all that out, throw it out, or if it was a donut, I might eat it. I mean, it was okay. Yeah. But there may be enough time to do that, or I guess, depending on time, I might be able to clean the bathrooms before the truck shows up that comes every night. When it comes to bathrooms, I gotta say, I may not be the best at keeping my own bathroom clean, but after this ordeal, I will never take it for granted, because people that identify as men, there's just something about us that we are unable to keep a bathroom the least bit respectably clean. Some of the things that I had seen there, I can't unsee and actively still make me sick. To this day. How? I don't know, just damn. Now, unless it was Monday, by the time you are done taking in the one truck for the night, you are done. That was it for me. Monday was a little different. We had our big truck, which would come in, drop a ton of product off in the store, and then it's a race to see if you can actually get it all put away in time. Those were fun nights. Those were always ones where I'd end up sleeping till fucking late into the next day. So it was never fun, those next days after that. And you weren't done with your week after that. You had to go back the next night. But if it wasn't a Monday, the rest of the night was pretty just laid back, and you could just kick back, clean the machines and the coffee pots and such, and take care of any clientele that may stumble their way into the store, which some nights could even be pretty rare in and of itself. There was a few nights where I wouldn't see another soul past midnight and may not see another soul till after 5 a.m. But then there were some nights where a couple cars worth of people would roll in at random points throughout the night. There was no real, way to pin it down. It was always a surprise to get customers. But you would take care of them, and then by the time morning would actually roll around, you would be preparing for the next guy, which is prep coffee, prep some hot food, and you're done. A lot of the times, I would just clean while kicking back with, like, podcasts or YouTube. Anything to give myself some mental stimuli so I wouldn't succumb to boredom or the possibility of falling asleep when the cleaning was done. It should come as no surprise that the typical clientele you're going to see is just like stoners or junkies, at least from what I could glean. But I did have some regulars, both good and bad, as well as I had some of those one-off stories that just stick in your memory, and whether or not you wanted them, that wasn't up to you. I did have a couple of good stories from my time at 7-Eleven, but most of the stories and memories that I have of some of the most just stupid things that people would do, or stupid stuff that just could happen, and I'm going to share the first 2 stories that I have with you. And they are from my first 2 nights working there. I've always wanted to do this because I'm obsessed with this fucking TikTok. So, I worked for 7-Eleven, and I don't speak for the brand of the company, and Storytime. Like I said before, this is a very quiet store. However, I was given 2 days of training when I first started, and these are where my stories started. On my very first night, everything was going very well. There were learning the ropes, I was shadowing, I was with a pretty chill dude, we talked about games, talked about anime. It was actually kind of funny, because it was clear that he was just a stoner, and I've always been able to jive with them. I was getting familiar with the POS system and all kinds of other stuff. You know, simple stuff, right? Well, at around 11 o'clock, a lady comes walking into the store and promptly gets some stuff, gets some cigarettes and gas or whatever. But the part that's just the part that's fuzzy in my memory. My bad. She looked at the 2 of us and asked if we knew that there was a guy passed out against the car wash using the power outlet. I distinctly remember the 2 of us looking at each other and replying with a simple, no. She continued to tell us again that a guy was passed out over on the car wash with a 5th of Jaeger and using our power outlet next to the car wash. We actually had zero idea as to what to do. I left everything to the guy training to. He obviously has been around the block a time or 2. He used to work for other places, and he needed to take a smoke break. So what he did is he went out there, and as I watched for like a little bitch from inside, he wakes up the guy, goes through the whole spiel about how he needs to get off the property, and, well, comes back in after he takes a smoke. Well, I asked, and he just replies with, he said he's gonna leave. We had to do this whole routine 3 more times. On the last time, before we would have ended up calling the cops, I walked out with him, so there was the combination of the 2 of us now standing out there, and that did tend to scare the man off. Or at least that's what we thought for a little while. At about 3 a.m. at this point, we're just taking care of some stuff, and he came back. This guy came back into the store and asked for us to brew him coffee specially. Also, he did not have the correct amount of change for it, so I'll let you take a guess whether or not we actually gave him coffee. The next night, a little bit better. Everything was going a lot smoother. We found ourselves having one interesting moment, but there really wasn't else interesting that happened, so I'll save you most of the detail with this one. We had a couple cops at this store that I worked at who were generally regulars. Infrequent, but regulars nonetheless. Like, I'd see them every couple of weeks, maybe once or twice a week. And then they would take a couple weeks off because they would have a different, route, and then they'd come back. So, I knew their faces, but I didn't know them to know their names, you know? But we finished helping out one of them, and the guy who was waiting behind them just immediately starts yelling about how the cops were just every word you can think of. And I do mean every word. If you're thinking, oh no, they didn't say that word, that one word that I'm not even gonna dare touch. Yeah, we heard that quite a few times. And about how, those were the guys that locked him up, this, that, the other thing. And wow, we tried to get him to just pay and leave. And as soon as he calms down a bit, guess what happens? Another fucking cop walks into the store. And as the guy leaves, we looked at the cop and just told him, dude, this is unreal. We help out this cop, and he had been actually waiting outside. We don't know why. I guess he just wanted to smoke and then come back in and try and buy more alcohol. I don't know. But we asked the cop if he would kindly tell the man to, fuck off and get off of the property. And the cop was more than happy to oblige after we told him the story. So he does. He takes care of him. I don't remember if that guy came back or not. If he did, I don't remember. I feel like he may have come back one time later in my time working there, but that one's kind of fuzzy. I guess he didn't have nearly as big of a blow up. But how's that for a first impression? Most people really wouldn't stick around after that one, so I'm not exactly sure why I did, because I wouldn't blame them, and the only reason why I think I did stick around is that way I wouldn't have to go back to working for Bezos. I was so scared of being financially unstable, I really, really didn't want to have to go back. Anything was better than working night shifts for Amazon. Especially with the manager that I had. And if you guys want to hear that at some point, maybe I'll do a personal channel story. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, of course, I have a few handfuls of other stories from my time at 7-Eleven, and maybe I'll do those on my personal channel one day too. I'm not sure. But I feel like I should say one of these stories is a lot more recent. And God, it was so funny. Because oh my God. It's the one that inspired me to make this video. Make this review of the entire ordeal. So, let me set the scene. I am getting ready to leave 7-Eleven. I've been there for a few months. I had put in applications to do more daytime work, so that way I wouldn't have to be working there during the day, because I really didn't want to. It was chaotic. I didn't want to deal with it. But I had been extended a couple of job opportunities, and I felt that after accepting them, it was time to put in the 7-Eleven 2 weeks. I did all that properly. I made a nice 2-week notice letter. I put it on my boss's desk because, of course, I come in Friday. That's my Monday, which sucked. Fridays being your Monday sucks because all your friends are excited for their weekend, and you're like, haha, I've got to go to work. So I leave that envelope on my boss's desk. I had dated the date, and this is a pro tip. Date your letter of resignation or your 2-week notice, and state somewhere in the letter that as of the date of me dating the letter, because then it shows that this day that you turned it in is your last day, not when they open it and read it. It shows that that day that you dated it for will be the start of that notice. Very nice, very nice. I ended up only actually having to work there a week longer than I thought I was going to, which was fantastic. Everything after I had turned in the letter was going perfectly normal. Nothing too crazy, not like super dead, but I had a couple people, mainly high school students this day. It was a Friday, like I said, so a lot of them had, going out, getting snacks, hanging out, chilling, and I'm happy to serve that clientele. After helping a certain group, though, I had been watching them to see if they were stealing any of my merchandise. Not that I didn't trust them, I just always had to worry if they were congregating in big groups and, looking at a lot of stuff, because it was my job. So, I'm making sure they didn't steal anything. They didn't. They paid for all their stuff and headed out and got into their car, and I thought that was the end of me seeing them for that night. That was until another group walked up, and these motherfuckers are walking in the line. Not just any line. They're walking in the line as if they're about to, get into a fight, or they're in the movie, like, about to pull off the biggest heist you ever seen. So, I see them walking in. I know they're going to cause trouble of some kind, so I just kind of give them a nod and say, hey man, how's it going? So that way they know, I'm here, I'm present, I'm watching, and they retort, they reply, and they enter my store one by one, all four of these guys, and head to the back of the store near the drinks. I figure probably going to get energy drinks, or probably going to try and steal beer. Those were my two go-to options, and I'll let you guess what happened. Yep. So, they were going to buy beer, or they were going to steal beer, because they were too young to buy it. I wasn't expecting this, I must say. I really wasn't expecting this. Arms full of cases. The first one comes back and says this to me, and I quote, "See ya, man," as he leaves with like 3 cases of like White Claw. And I'm like, okay, there goes one. Here comes another one. And he looks at me. He's got 2 big Budweiser things. Like 13 can Budweiser things. And he's out the door. Next guy, 4 cans of White Claw. Or 4 boxes of White Claw out the door. And here comes the last one. 2 Coors things. And he's out the door. Now, I must express, I'm in a plexiglass box, effectively. It's not like I can jump over the counter and do anything, even if I wanted to or could, because corporate policy says I'm not supposed to do anything. So, I just watched them leave. And the only thing I could do, as soon as the last one left, was look up at the ceiling and say, fuck. Without hesitation, though. The other group of high schoolers, the ones that I had initially watched at the beginning, the ones that paid for everything, come right back into the store, and they said that they had saw the group, and that's why they stuck around, because they didn't know if, they were coming in here just to shoplift, or if they were coming in to, like, rob me. So they said that they were ready to come in and fight these guys, like they were looking to knock some bitches out, and I appreciated that. It honestly was super, super nice to have this group of high school kids just, they probably didn't realize how much it meant, but it was nice to know that they were willing to come in and fight these guys out of my store. I told them it wasn't necessary, but I did ask that they would stick around since we had to file a police report, because 1, the alcohol was stolen by minors, and 2, they walked out with easily $80 worth of beer. It wasn't a small amount. They easily walked out with $80 worth of beer. So, we call the cops, they come, they show up, they take statements from them, I do the math. Not like anything ever came of it, but at least we had the records, so that way when we reported it to, like, Budweiser or whoever, we could get reimbursed for the beer. Like you do. Like you do. I really do gotta hand it to those kids, though. It was kind of nice. It made me feel important, and it wasn't intended to be that way, but it made me feel important and made it nice that they were willing to come in and fight some kids for me. Needless to say, that was an interesting night, and that's the one that kind of gave me the inspiration for this one. The next thing I remember is that whenever something would happen, or I'd have a super creepy person come into my store, the next person who was just awesome or looked down on their luck, I would usually pay it forward, because when you're at a store alone, you get a weird vibe if things aren't going right. So I would like to try and balance out the vibes of the store And it could be just as small as paying for some homeless person's coffee or giving it to them for free, or if they were living out of their car, paying for their gas to give them a full tank. I would do anything just to have that sweet, sweet balance in my store. And I don't regret that part. I really don't. Now, as this technically was a review and not so much a story time, granted, I've just spent 14 minutes talking about the story time portion of this, would I actually recommend this job? Not to anyone. No, I would not recommend this to anyone. Or, I guess, just anyone. It takes a certain kind of stupid to do this job. And for me, I'd like to think I'm smarter, but I took it as an act of desperation. Turning it into something that I overall took as a very net positive, I took the skills that I had learned from this job and started using them to apply for jobs that were in things that I wanted to do, but also weren't entry-level jobs. And I felt, just because, I had dealt with deliveries, I had dealt with, customers, I had been my own, manager, and I had a good handle on how things worked. And I even trained staff around me. Did any of those people I trained stay? No. Well, yes. But technically that one guy got fired that did stay. It's a long story. And again, maybe I'll tell it another time. But generally, I was trying to make the best out of my situation. I looked inwards, saw what I valued for myself, and what I wanted to shape my goals into, and I took everything from there. That was just me trying to make the best out of the situation, though. Generally, I would not recommend this job to someone who couldn't be both firm and understanding, who maybe has anxiety. It was very nerve-wracking a lot of nights. But the thing is, someone does have to do it, and they should be someone who has a decent head on their shoulders, who can be empathetic, who doesn't mind having to listening to the idle noise of machine while their earbuds are dying. And also probably not someone who can be easily swayed by food and drinks, because you're surrounded by it all night, and it is tempting. Thank you guys for watching another video here on Internet Nobodies. I apologize for missing my last review. It was supposed to be this one. I was lazy and didn't do it. For the most part, it corrupted, and I just could not be fucked to fix it. And then this week, it was late because, I got called in early. Shit happens. It happens. Oh well, what are you gonna do? I'll see you guys next time. Matthew is coming up next.